Welcome to InfluenceNow podcast. I'm your host, Justin Kraft. Today we have Jeff Cisneros, founder of Sparta Combat League, also known as SCL, one of the biggest combat leagues, MMA leagues in the world now, across 9 states, 2 countries, TV deals. He's also got a media company, a supplement company, part owner in a gym these days. We talked to him about what it's like to be an entrepreneur in today's world and how he got started. I want to start today, actually. I've known you for years, Jeff.
Right.
And give us a little bit of a bio, who you are, how SCL started.
Sure.
So for those of you who don't know, Sparta Combat League is a MMA league that started locally in Colorado and now has branched out, I believe, 9 states.
Yeah, 9 states, and we're going to break through internationally this year. But hope everybody's having a wonderful, blessed morning. My name's Jeff. I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. I grew up here in Denver. I grew up poor and in a broken home, and it inspired me at a young age to basically pursue my dreams at all costs. So I've been a full-time entrepreneur now for 20 years. I'm 38 years old, and actually on St. Patty's Day was the day that I got my license. So my entrepreneur career is old enough to have a drink with me this year. So it'll be 21 years next Saturday. But yeah, I've been a lifelong entrepreneur, and started with a supplement company, and then in March of 2010 we launched Sparta Combat League, an MMA promotion that's now a boxing promotion, kickboxing promotion. We kind of house it all under one roof now.
Okay. and tell us a little bit more, because you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. So
right.
Digging back into a little bit of the story of SCL and how it existed, give us a little bit of whether it was growing up or when did you discover you were an entrepreneur? Take us all the way through kind of the metamorphosis of SCL, where
Sure.
that came from. I know you used to sell, it was crazy back 10, 15 years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah.
You used to sell supplements. I actually bought some supplements out of you when you were selling them out of the back of your car at the gym.
Yep.
And that's how we know each other originally.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of a story of how it came from that to what it is now.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it started when I was a young kid, and there used to be this guy that owned a local baseball card shop up on the corner of 80th and Federal. And I would go in there every day and I would harass him to let me sell baseball cards at school for him. And he would not do it. And then finally, after about 7 months, he's like, "You're a pain in the butt. I'm going to let you do this." And I killed it for him. And it was awesome. And I got that first taste for sales. And I loved it, doing something I loved, and passion. And so, I believe I was always entrepreneurial minded. I had a candy and pop business. And then we were talking earlier, it's funny, frowned upon. So, don't show your children this part. But I actually got suspended in 7th grade because I was running a dice game after school program that was pretty popular with all the kids,
Yeah.
but not the principal.
Yeah, the principal didn't like you too much.
Yeah, he didn't like it. And then, I was 17. I started working for EAS, Experimental Applied Sciences. That's when Bill Phillips had it, and it was huge. And they were based out of here in Golden, Colorado. And I just had a part-time job there, basically being on the phone like an operator, handling calls. And I was like, man, I can do this. And literally, just a couple weeks before my 18th birthday, I went off and launched Rock Hard Nutrition. And we always talk about it. That's when I became a trunk hustler. I took the $500 I had and I bought product, and I went to gyms. That's where I met you. I sold stuff to you and to everybody else in there, and it kind of evolved. But then, unfortunately, in June of 2007, we went through the economic collapse, and luxury items are like one of the first things to go. And so the business really started to tank. So in November of 2009, I sold that business for pennies on the dollar to another company. And I was living in this one-bedroom apartment with my girlfriend at the time, and had enough money to pay off my credit card debt, basically, and nothing else. And so I was at a coffee shop with a friend, and he's like, "What are you going to do next?" I was like, "Well, I'm going to start our own supplement line that we manufacture, and it's going to be called Spartan Labs." And that had always been a goal and a dream many years before then anyway. But he's like, "How are you going to market it and launch it?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to create an MMA promotion, because mixed martial arts is exploding right now, and we'll use that as the platform to kind of take it." And our first event was Army versus Marines, and it was a huge home run. But what I didn't realize at the time is that event is a standalone event, and still is to this day. And that's what we're taking to Pepsi Center. But we came back and we lost all our money in the next 3 events again. And so it was like starting from ground zero. So me and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, we got a game plan together. We restructured it and we built it up. And we went from doing like 2 events to 3 events to 6 to 10 to 12 to 18 to 30 last year. And this year we're doing 42 in 9 states and 2 countries. And next year we're going to make our East Coast invasion, and we're planning for over 50 events in the entire U.S. And hopefully we're, even into Europe a little further. And we're talking about South America as well. So.
And it's even gotten to the point too where, I mean, you've niched yourself too. You've been able to, we'll get a little bit into what that product niche is, but you've actually niched this surprisingly enough, because it is a market that's fairly saturated with a lot of different promoters and boxing and everything else. And you've been able to niche and figure out new ideas and new ways of doing business. And we'll get into a little bit of that in a minute here. I want to ask you though, because this is one of my favorite questions to ask entrepreneurs. Did you manifest this and have a vision of this before it became what it became today? And has it become what you thought it was going to be?
I'll be honest, with Sparta Combat League, it's gone from the start. I never manifested that we would be here, that we would be a national brand, and that we would be on TV. But growing up, I had a strong self-belief in myself that I was going to be ultra successful in something. Honestly, I always thought it was going to be the fitness industry, and it had always been a dream of mine to own a gym, and it just didn't look like it was going to happen because Sparta Combat League was exploding at the time. For the last 3 years, we've just been on this exponential growth. I mean, it's been insane. And I was, like I said, I just believed that I was going to be super successful at something. I didn't know really what it was. I thought I'd be in the fitness industry, and the promotion has just started taking off like wildfire. But it was 5 years ago that I looked at this, and me and my wife talked, and I'm like, this thing's going to be huge. Like we have potential being a global brand. And then, last year, an opportunity to buy this gym came up, and a few weeks ago we just closed on it. So ultimately, I did get my dream of being in the fitness industry.
So having said all that, and now having a gym, which was a dream of yours as well, so you're realizing all these different dreams now, and it's come at 10 years of hard work.
Right.
So people see the glamorous part, right?
But
they don't see the negative part.
We talk about it all the time. People see public glory, but never the private struggle. And a lot of struggles that entrepreneurs go through, as is loneliness. You feel like a failure. You have no money. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul in multiple businesses to make sure everything's covered, and it's stressful. And people don't see that, but you don't go out to the public and be like, feel sorry for me, because these are the life that we choose. And ultimately, at the end of the day, for me, one of the biggest things was, during 9/11 and the MC WorldCom thing, you had people that dedicated 30 years of their life to a company to wake up and find out they had nothing. They had been frauded. Mm-hmm. So, at the end of time, whatever I have, I would have built, and whatever I don't is my fault as well. And, as cliche as it sounds, it's really not about the money. It's I'm in pursuit of a legacy for my family and my girls. I want to build that empire and be the kind of man that my girls can look up to and be like, our dad worked so hard, and our mom did, and they built this incredible thing. Because we don't live forever, so everybody's goal is to try to build something that does.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of the community-focused stuff too. Because you've had to deal with challenges in your business, so one of my favorite questions to ask is, what were the biggest challenges to overcome? Which you mentioned some of those, but taking that another step further, have you had any negative publicity that has happened as a result of anything that you've done, or anything that you thought was a good idea that turned out not to be a good idea?
Yeah.
I'm leading you into something here.
Yeah, well, there's been a ton of it, but one that stands out for me is I've always been a guy with great passion, tons of energy, and I always lead with my heart, which has got me in trouble a few times. And one specifically was, a guy I respect a lot in the MMA community here in Colorado, Luke Cladillo. He's a former UFC fighter. He's a man of his word. He called me one day and he said, "Hey, I got a favor." He said, "I have a client I've been training for 5 or 6 years, and she needs a fight." And I was like, "Okay, no problem, And he's like, "But there's a catch." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "She's 68 years old." And so I kind of chuckled to myself, and I was like, "Wait, are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah, can you come meet her?" So I'm like, absolutely. So I go down and meet Ann, and I fall completely in love with her. She steals my heart. She's a cancer survivor. She'd been training for 6 years. She had done some smokers, so she was actually 2-0 in kickboxing fights. But she needed this to have freedom in her soul. And I am like the worst person that somebody should ask to help pursue a dream, because I'm going to do it. And I did it without thinking about it. And, we were pretty far along in this mission already. We were getting some national attention, and, she got beat up pretty good in 2 rounds, but she came out and she said that it gave her this freedom that she just needed for closure in her life. And when she gave me that hug and whispered that in my ear, even like seeing her with the black eye and everything was like, okay, I did the right thing. But I can't lie, I was sick to my stomach that whole day leading up. Like, did I do the right thing? Did I not? There was just a ton of support leading up to the fight. That's what was weird. And so anyway, we had to get out that week and get right onto a plane, and we were headed to Seattle. We were doing our first show in Seattle at the time. And I was in the shower, and I had ESPN on, and I hear a 68-year-old, grandmother gets beat down in Denver, Colorado, and it was like on the "Come on, man, are you serious?" Like one of those segments. And I was like, I hop out of the shower, and I was sitting there watching my phone's blowing up, and my friend Danny that we saw in here in the gym earlier today, he's like, "Dude, you guys are on ESPN." I freaked out, called my attorney. I'm like, "What should we do?" And he's like, "Oh, it's already, like, we just got to do damage control at this time." The video had gone viral and had already approached almost 1 million views in 2 days. So, the lesson there was, I always tell people, follow your heart, pursue your passion. But if you are trying to build a national brand and be and build this massive company, you have to be a little more careful in the things that you do.
Yeah.
You have to think twice.
Yeah, and surround yourself, we talked about this before too, surround yourself with some people that can tell you that's not a good idea.
I had plenty of those. So, unfortunately for those people, it's like Jeff just does whatever he wants.
Yeah, but lesson learned. I think for all of us that are entrepreneurs, we all have that problem.
Yeah.
We want to go out there and think with our hearts too often. And sometimes we just jump right in and we do stuff. Yeah. And it's not necessarily the best thing to do.
No, but I also will say too, is like being that ultra type A personality entrepreneur, if I didn't do a lot of the things that I did that everybody else told me was crazy, we wouldn't be here. Sparta as a brand's now 4 companies would not be where we are had I not done a lot of those bold, crazy ideas that everybody told me I was out of my mind. So.
Yeah. And speaking of bold and crazy ideas, so that leads us into some of the marketing conversation and what it means to market a company like this, and how you take, like, what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs when they're first starting out, and how did you get to where you are, and what marketing hacks and what marketing did you do, knowing money was definitely an issue at the beginning, to where you are now and what you're able to do now with the money and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we literally had no money when we started, and social media was free. It's funny. Have you ever, we always talk about this with other entrepreneurs and dream chasers. Have you ever been in a moment where a scent reminds you and takes you back to a time, right? Last summer I was out on the backyard with my girls and on the deck, and I caught, like, there was a wind, and I caught a whiff of like stale soda in a can. And it made me remember, like, I used to wait in the apartment complex until midnight and everybody would go to sleep, and I would dumpster dive for cans to save cans to make ends meet, at the time. And it was crazy. And like a lot of the way I grew up and things like that, I was really ultra embarrassed about. But then ultimately I was like, this is my story. This is going to inspire somebody else that's going through tough times to see, like, that they can do it too. So literally, Justin, I went door to door to all these gyms, and I told the gym coaches and the fighters, like, this is my vision. This is what I believe Sparta is going to become. This is what I want to do in the community. And honestly, right out of the gate, 2 of Colorado's biggest stars at the time, Josh Copeland, who went on to UFC, and Adam Stroop, who is a rising, he's still a relevant name here. They came over, and that kind of gave me my breakthrough. And so I had the biggest star on Sparta Combat League, which was this little promotion. Nobody could figure it out, but that was huge for us. And then just social media, like, Facebook and anything that we could do back there. I think MySpace even was like the cool tool back then to, like, talk about my business and what we were doing. So we basically just went through horrific financial issues. Many times, I still can't even look at ramen noodles. And it's funny because my girls love them and I can't stomach them because there was a time where we lived on them for 3 to 4 months.
We have that. We actually have that in common. When I was younger growing up, and it sounds like your youth was very similar to mine. I was living in a trailer park and it was ramen noodles. That's what we could afford. It's like 60 cents for a thing of ramen noodles, and that's what you ate.
Absolutely. But, I believe that those tough times, eventually they either make you or break you. And in entrepreneurship especially, I see a lot of people turn around before the blessing happens. And one of the biggest mistakes, the advice I want to always give is people are like, how did you do it? What's it like getting here? And my number one thing is never compare your journey to somebody else's, because it's not your journey. You don't understand it. I had a friend who had started a real estate business and became a multimillionaire in 3 years. And here I was still struggling and working way harder than him, I thought, in my own mind. But that was his journey versus mine. And I've had faster success than a lot of other people I know. Yeah. So that's a key thing.
You actually keyed something up in my head I hadn't thought about before, but actually I have thought about it. But when I see other friends of mine really successful in other industries, right, and when I first started Cast Influence and have done other things in my life where I started my own business and it didn't necessarily pan out the way I wanted to right away,
right,
or whatever it is, that little bit of second guessing comes in your head. Maybe I should get into real estate. Yeah. Maybe I should, like it well,
real estate, it makes more millionaires than any other business, And so we talked about Sparta Real Estate, and that's our next venture is like now, we're starting to get involved in commercial real estate. And that's just something that I want to do for a nest egg for the girls when they get older,
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it's good to diversify in those ways.
Absolutely.
Sure. So where do you see SCL's future going?
Yeah.
You just bought this amazing gym. We're going to have some footage I'll actually attach with this of the actual Sparta area where you have the ring set up, and just a really cool idea that's coming together for you. You have media, you have obviously your events, you're branching out into real estate possibly. Yeah. We'll talk about some of the community stuff here in a second. Where do you see this going? What's next?
Well, it's always funny. So far we've had 2 offers to sell Sparta Combat League, and I don't want to do it. And somebody's like, what would you do if UFC came to you and they said, here's $5 million, go away? Would you do it? And those close to me know that it's sincere when I say no, because someday this will be for sale, but when the mission's completed. Right? And we're not there yet. Like, I want to become the #1 combat sports brand in the world that does boxing, kickboxing, MMA. We started doing these events that have the ring and the cage at the events. We debuted it at the Denver Coliseum in November, and it does boxing and kickboxing in the ring, and then you have MMA in the cage. And then June 30th at Pepsi Center, we have the King of Sparta tournament where you got to win a boxing fight, a kickboxing fight, then an MMA fight for 10 grand and bragging rights. Who's the ultimate combat sports athlete? Who's King of Sparta? So ultimately, I want to continue to make this an international brand, a global brand, and become #1 in the world at what we do. And then, at that time, if it's time to sell, I've talked to a lot of other entrepreneurs and dream chasers, and they all have that one thing in common: like, they either sold when it was right, or they regret that they got rid of it. But ultimately, I'll know in my heart when this is run course, because everything runs course.
Yeah, and you got a lot, like you said, you got a lot of vision still.
Yeah, we're still working 8 days a week.
Yeah. So I always like to bring up the community-focused stuff because my company's also a PR firm, so we concentrate on that stuff. And it's very much who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And, I can't thank you enough for being as involved in the community as you are.
Yeah.
I see it every day, still different social posts, whatever you're doing, getting people involved, motivating people to get involved. What are all the things that you're doing, and how can people get involved in some of those?
Oh man, we just we had this talk on Saturday. Actually, my wife did have an argument because again, my heart gets me in trouble, and I volunteer for a lot of other 501c3s, like when we don't have an event, and I got to focus more and hone it in on our stuff. But with Sparta Combat League, we do everything. At 98% of our events, we raise money and donate money to everything from childhood cancer to adult cancer, suicide prevention. We had a family that tragically lost their 18-year-old son, had hung himself, no note or anything, popular kid, completely out of the blue. They needed $2,000 $2,000 for a headstone. We were able to raise that money in the event. So we do a lot of that. And then we do every year, the annual things we do is the SCL Christmas Crusade, where nominated children get to come with me and my team, and they get $300 a piece at Target or Walmart to buy whatever they want for Christmas. And then every September we do the same thing, the shoe drive. They get $150 to buy either new shoes or school clothes for for themselves. And it's more meant for inner city kids that are going through a tough time, or man, I know a lot of good people that one of the spouses lost a job and they make too much to qualify for assistance. It's really hard. And so we kind of find a lot of those families that slip through the cracks, and we're able to help them through some of the tough times. So I would say follow us on social media. My personal info is, Jeff Cisneros. I'm all over social media, or Jeff at SpartaCombatLeague.com, but we're always looking for volunteers on that stuff.
Yeah, and one of your personal stories that you like to bring up is the shoe story.
Yeah.
So
I was 7 years old, and I had never had a brand new pair of shoes. And there was this local entrepreneur named Jesse, and he owned an ice sculpting business. And he was probably in his early 20s, I would say, at the time. And he'd always be like, "Yo, homie, what's up with them shoes?" I had some ragged shoes, but it's what we had. And I was like, "Well, that's what I could afford." He's like, "What size are you?" And I told him, and the next day he brought a brand new pair of Air Jordans. And how's the old saying going? A new pair of shoes can change your life. And it's so funny because I had like this level of self-esteem and confidence. And luckily for me, I grew up in an area where a lot of kids didn't have a lot. So the kid that had the Air Jordans was like the odd one. And because a lot of kids didn't have a lot, but man, I took that idea and we grew it from doing one kid to 3 to 10 to 30 to 50 children. And our goal for 2018 is to be able to help over 100 children. And actually want to start expanding the program into other states that we're in.
That's awesome. And I got to thank you for being that involved, because it really does mean a lot to me. Having that much integrity is key. One of our big missions in life is aspire to more and cast positive influence. So you are doing that, and you are living that, which is fantastic. I
was just going to say too, real quick, I believe that if you have any form of success at all, that you owe it to your community to give back. And it doesn't mean monetarily. It means that you can go out and you can hand out, I always tell my team, let's go hand out hot meals and hugs. We're not here to judge those that are homeless. And I can tell you from experience out there on the street and dealing with these people that 95% of the people have definitely done some stuff to put themselves there. But there's 5% of people that literally we've had conversations with that just went through a tough time, and they were paycheck to paycheck, and things happened, one thing led to another, and they're on the street.
Yeah.
So
we're actually all one paycheck away.
Yeah, absolutely.
From being in bad shape.
Oh, so, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about some of the events coming up.
Yep.
And how people can contact you.
Yep.
And I know one of them that I really want you to dig into is the King of Sparta, because that one is so unique, so niched. It's going to be a real cool event. You got the Pepsi Center locked down for it, which is, I think everyone's super stoked for that. So.
Yeah, it's been a lifelong. It's another dream, man. Driving by it, I always tell people I was going to do Pepsi Center, and people laugh. And now we're doing Pepsi Center. And now I say, just look down south a little bit further. We're going to be doing Invesco Field by 2021. I'm going to make that happen, one way or the other.
Nice.
But so this Saturday we have a fight night that showcases the young rising talent in South Dakota, Rapid City. I love that market. They've been very supportive to us. And we come back March 24th, and we have Budweiser Event Center. It's a huge arena, holds 5,400 people, and we're showcasing our super welterweight star Anthony Adams, who's 6-0, and he's one of the top prospects in the country. So it's exciting. And then we come back April 7th. We go to Seattle. April 14th, boxing. Denver, April 21st. We're actually doing 2 shows. We've got a show here in Colorado and one in Montana running that night. So it's getting pretty crazy, but you could get tickets at SpartaCombatLeague.com. And for any of the listeners, the code will be up for the next 2 weeks, code Justin, in the order notes, and it'll give you a 20% off discount.
Awesome.
And then Pepsi Center. You can't forget about that. King of Sparta. We're going to make combat sports history. It's never been done in the world before. We're going to have, you got to win a boxing fight, and then a kickboxing fight, then an MMA fight, all in one night for $10,000 and bragging rights that you're the king of combat sports.
That's amazing. I'm so looking forward to that event.
Me too.
I'm hooked on it. Being a martial artist in my past. To bring all those disciplines and knowing how difficult each one of those disciplines are in themselves. going to be such a fun event. I recommend anyone going to that if you're into this type of sport.
Yeah.
Going to be a great event.
Well, plus it's our annual Army versus Marines night as well. So we have Army versus Marines event, and we're actually honoring the Vietnam veterans only that evening. So we're gonna have 10 Vietnam veterans that are getting honored, and we're working with some incredible 501c like Ranger Regroup, For the Fallen, and a couple other that we're gonna be working with. That we're gonna donate a large portion of proceeds that night too.
Okay. I mean, perfect. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't say how much I'm looking forward to that event. So,
yeah, me too.
Please go check it out, SpartaCombatLeague.com, and find Jeff on Facebook.
Instagram. I'm even learning Snapchat. My 5-year-old daughter is giving me some lessons in it. Isn't it crazy? Technology we talk about it. It's like, I'm pretty sure when I was 5 years old, I was drinking from the gutter and eating mud pies, and she's over here running social media for me.
Yeah, right. So. Generation gaps, man.
Right, yeah.
And I want to thank everyone listening today. This podcast will be available on iTunes, SoundCloud, all the various areas that we post to YouTube. We can get to catch the video. Please do follow us. Again, it's InfluenceNow, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Take care, brother.
Thank you.